Alright guys, as I mentioned in my second last video, I was going to make a review, including patterns, on a potential 12 gauge waterfowl gun at a bargain basement price, yet it has performance that probably is more along the lines of something 4 or 5 times its range, at least pattern wise. So I bought this gun, I think it was September last year, and I kind of wanted one of these for a while because I like over and unders, but I didn't really know if it was what I wanted to hunt waterfowl or pheasants or, you know, doves or anything like that, just because you only have 2 shots and I've really only ever hunted with 3, right? So anyways, this is a Stoeger Condor 1. So this is the bottom of the barrel, okay? It is a synthetic stock, 28-inch barrel, comes in, 28-inch barrels, comes in just a little over 7, I think it's about 7¼ pounds, so not real heavy. 3-inch chambers, does not have a vented rib, but as you guys can tell, it's got vented barrels. Some people complain about that. I really can't, and I think once I show you the patterns, you'll probably agree. But as I stated, 28-inch barrels, 3-inch chamber. It's just kind of a generic matte black finish. It is not the most durable finish in the world. I did hunt with it in the rain a couple times, and you definitely, you got to wipe it down with oil. You will get some rust. It's kind of like, you know, any cheap Parkerized finish or whatever, like an 870 or Mossberg 500 or something like that. The trigger's actually pretty decent. I think when I checked it on my gauge, it breaks somewhere around 4.5, 5 pounds, which isn't bad. Doesn't have a lot of creep, does have some over travel. It's not really the end of the world. It doesn't have ejectors, which I think a hunting gun should have, but at $320, which is what I paid, and an MSRP of $350, I think it might be a little picky at that point. It is just a single trigger, and it is a mechanical trigger. It is not the inertia trigger either. So that's kind of nice. You know, it doesn't have adjustable shims or anything like that. You know, this gun's either got to fit you or you got to figure out how to make it fit you. I don't have any issues. But you can't select barrels either, okay? And when it's just got a safety, that's all it's got. When you break the barrel, load up, close the barrel, the safety auto engages. I can see positives to that. I can see negatives to that. For me, it hasn't affected me so far, and I have killed quite a few ducks with it so far. I haven't shot any geese. But like I said, I did just start hunting with it just this last waterfowl season. I've been mostly hunting with 10 gauge for quite a while. With that being said, what I'm going to do is show you guys some patterns here in a little bit. That'll be the second part of the video. But when I did pattern it, I patterned it with the Carlson's extended choke tubes, okay? Got these as the 3 choke tube set. Got the other one in there. I think I got the IC in that one. Close range, mid-range, long range, kind of standard issue stuff. These chokes, the factory ones, they did not pattern well for me. It kind of looked like somebody cut them on a hobby lathe. Definitely not worth your time, at least the 3 that I got with it. They are just standard Browning invector. So, you know, think of Mossberg 500, you know, 535, whatever. They're your standard chokes. I mean, you can even see extended. Look how short those are. So the extended part of the choke is like 60% as long as the choke body itself. So definitely they cut some corners when it comes to that, for sure. I would have them rather used, you know, Beretta Mobile like they use on some of their other, like I think it's Condor 2s or 3s or whatever. I'm not a big Stoeger guy. It's kind of a strange gun for me when it comes over and under, because I've got a Caesar Granny sitting in my gun safe and a Beretta Silver Pigeon sporting in 20 gauge. So those two guns there alone will buy you a cheap used car. And here I am hunting with a $320 gun. But like I said, I had purchased this just to give over and unders a shot. The only two types of ammunition I've run out of it. I haven't not done a whole bunch of reloading for 12 gauge. I've done it, and everything I've done, I've tried to mimic this round right here. This is Winchester Xpert Snowgoose. This is hands down the best steel load that I have ever shot in all of the years of waterfowl hunting that I've ever done. I have never shot a better steel load ever, period. I never thought I would say that about Xpert. I used to pick on Winchester Xperts. You know, I was one of those guys, like, it couldn't say anything positive about them, right? You know, the shot would come out and none of them are the same size. These Xpert Snowgoose, on the other hand, I do think that the key to these is this wad right here. And that is the wad they use with the blind sides. I got a spent one right here. So that's a spent wad, okay? And I do believe this is the key to the shell. Now, the pellets are also more round, by the way, at least the couple that I've cut open. They're definitely not perfectly round, but they are round. 3-inch shell, 1475 on velocity. That's a little optimistic. I've run these over chronograph. My average is about 1425. Doesn't matter. I've killed birds, you know, as far as 40, 45 yards, no problem, including pretty big Canadian geese. 1.25 ounce payload. I did measure the couple I cut apart, and they are basically right at 1.25 ounces, and the shot size is 1 and 2 blend. And that is one of my most common that I also make in the 10 gauge. That's what I shoot most of my birds with, is a 1 and 2. I don't blend it. I actually stack them. But in this case, they are blended, and it has not affected pattern, performance, or anything, and I'll show you that here in a second. And then the other rounds I tried are these Boss Bismuth. They're 3-inch, 1.5 ounces of copper-plated number 3 Bismuth. They're going 1350. So I would say these. I would say that these two particular boxes of ammunition, if this is all that I could ever buy and hunt with again, I'd have zero issues saying this is all I'm going to use. I don't even really know how to say it other than I'm that satisfied in the 12 gauge, of course, with these two particular companies right now when it comes and making these loads. So generally speaking, I prefer to make my own. I just haven't found it to make a whole bunch of sense for the 12 gauge because I have so much ammunition from years of buying, you know, waterfowl ammunition, and just I've been hunting with the 10 gauge so much, my supply has gone down extremely slow in 12 gauge. But that's pretty much all I got to say about this gun. It wasn't a real crazy review, but what I'll do is I'll kind of break it and show you guys. There's 2 snap caps in there. So like I said, they're not, they're just extractors. They're not ejectors. Said 2 snap caps in there. They're fake, don't worry. You know, it's a crude gun for sure. You know, the jeweling that they've done on the action looks definitely done by hand. It's not evenly spaced. It isn't particularly pretty. The fit, right, you can kind of see, okay, it's not the best, okay? It's a $320 gun, okay? But it is incredibly tight. Even after shooting quite a bit of ammunition through this target loads and a lot of magnums, it's incredibly tight. It's incredibly smooth. It's quite incredible. And the front forearm, it fits so good. It fits so good. It's kind of impressive. It's a very crude gun, okay? It's a very crude gun, but it's a very functional gun. And if you're waterfowl hunting, you know, your stuff gets beat up a little bit, so to speak. This is definitely an option if you're not sure if you want to hunt with an over and under, or for that matter, you're looking for an all-weather, all-purpose gun. Maybe you're on a budget, you know, whatever the issue is. This is definitely something to keep an eye out for. I'm really happy with it. I'm not getting rid of this gun. Even if I go and get something nicer, I'm not getting rid of this gun because I'm that happy with it. And truth be told, I had originally purchased this to give it a shot, see if I like it, and then never ended up even considering getting the Browning Synergy, which is, I believe, like $1,800 to $1,900, which I got no problem spending that money on a good firearm. But the truth is, the amount I hunt with a 12 gauge, the amount I'm going to hunt with an over and under, well, this will probably suffice. And I probably don't need to make the investment in the Browning. And actually, what I hunted with mostly this year with this, besides, you know, a couple times I've taken some ducks with it, I actually took this pheasant hunting quite a few times, and it did quite well. There were 2 times I shot 3 rounds and got 2 pheasants, and then another time where I shot 3 rounds and only got once. But this has been a pretty darn good gun, and I'm definitely happy with it. And I'm kind of excited. I'm gonna show you guys the patterns here in a second, and I'll show you these 2 with all 3 Carlson's, just the standard waterfowl choke tubes, nothing fancy. And I'll show you those patterns here in a minute. And I just probably should add that I did put this neoprene shell holder on here. You know, I don't really put the shells in there too much. I do put them in when I'm hunting the ducks, but I don't do it when I'm pheasant, just because I don't think it holds the shells quite good enough to want to walk around doing that. It also kind of helps cushion your face just a tiny bit because it's smooth and it's a pretty thin layer of neoprene. So I'm going to roll into the patterns here in a second. All right, guys, this is the pattern portion of the video. So before I get started with these patterns, the next 3 that we go over, in the corner of the target, it'll say XSG, and all, you know, I just abbreviated for Xpert, Snowgoose, right? Kind of that simple. Anyways, so this is the improved cylinder, Xpert Snowgoose, at 35 yards. I didn't pick 40 yards. I just chose 35 yards for these tests. I will tell you the extra 5 yards, it's going to be similar, just a little bit more open. It's a 30-inch wide piece of paper. That's a pretty damn good pattern for an improved cylinder, if I gotta say so. At 35 yards, that's a pretty damn good pattern. It'd be hard for a teal to get through that. All right, the next one is a modified out of the Condor 12 Xpert Snowgoose. That is an impressive pattern. Yes, it's a little bit to the left. I was freestanding and I pulled a couple of these. There's some human error built into that, but this is a 30-inch wide target. That is one hell of a pattern. I mean, that's a damn good pattern. And keep in mind, that is a budget box of shells out of a budget gun and budget aftermarket choke tubes. So here's the full There's the, and there is the full out of that gun. So you got a couple flyers. It's not perfect, but that's a pretty tight core. You're probably looking a 2-foot core, so that is a hell of a pattern out of a cheap gun like that. Cheap chokes, cheap ammunition. I really rank that box of shells right there. If that's all you can afford, I'd run them all day long. You know, if you're hunting teal or something like that, probably isn't right, but I'm hunting mostly big ducks, divers, and Canadian geese. So I'm going to go on to the Boss next. And these were quite impressive as well. All right, now, this is 35 yards, Boss number 3, 1.5 ounces, 1353 inch. That's an improved cylinder. So now everybody says that these particular Boss shells, the Bismuth, like a tight choke. Well, look at that pattern. That's a 30-inch wide piece of paper. It's pretty darn good for an improved cylinder. Now that case of shells will run you about the price of the gun. But you know what? Maybe you save some money on the gun and you spend your extra money on the ammunition. Check that out. That's a modified. What's going to get through that? Teal's not going to make it through that. That's an absurdly good pattern, modified choke, Boss Bismuth. We're going to go to full. Check that out. Full choke. Cheap gun, cheap choke, expensive shells. That's 35 yards. Number 3s, I'd feel comfortable probably shooting a bird 45, 50 yards. If you're one of those guys, you're taking a Hail Mary, I'd feel pretty damn comfortable with that. Like I said, 30-inch wide sheet of paper. So I'm going to end the video off on that. Hopefully you guys like the pattern test. I'm actually going to have some more coming here next. I think you'll be shocked going from a 10 gauge to the next gauge, but you'll see that here shortly. Hopefully you guys enjoyed.